have too many divorces? Because half of the men have become feminine. The reason why Allah gave the right to divorce to the man, because the man had control over the situation. The beauty of the woman is that she's emotional. There's nothing wrong. That's actually a quality, character trait. That's another topic. We could probably talk about this tomorrow, addressing marriage problems, and I'll talk about these issues. Woman is naturally more fragile, more gentle, more soft. خُلِقَتْ مِنْ ضِلَعٍ وَإِنَّ عَوَجَ مَا فِي الضِّلَعِ عَلَاهَا وَإِنْ اسْتَمْتَعْتَ بِهَا اسْتَمْتَعْتَ بِهَا وَفِيهَا عِوَجْ, which means she's emotional, fragile, handled with care. She'll cry, and you ask her why you're crying. She won't know herself why she's crying. No problem, that's a woman. This is why sometimes a woman will say, I'll divorce you 50 times, and then she'll say, I love you. No problem. She didn't mean the I divorce you. And she probably doesn't even mean the I love you. Be careful. You better be careful. You don't know what she's meaning. You have to understand. You have to be a diplomat. So there's a reason. But the problem why we have so many divorces today, because the man has lost his masculinity and his control and grip of the situation. He just gets emotional and just talaq, and then he starts crying. Like, what did I do? And now, This is the reason Allah made you a man. That you don't just say just like that. You have control over the situation. And I actually mentioned this in one place that, look, this is not about equality in Islam. There's equality between men and women, but there's not similarity. We'll talk about all of this tomorrow. Leave it to tomorrow. This is a topic, inshallah, we'll have. But there's a reason why the man has a right to divorce. Okay. I mentioned this, that actually in this particular ruling, it's not a favor for a man. The favor is for a woman. Women are more fortunate. You'd rather be in that situation. The man has to worry. How many brothers have come up to me and I've come across who have waswasa, doubts, and they're struggling. I don't know if I'm going to say talaq to my wife. I want to say talaq. There's one brother who contacted me 2-3 weeks ago. He called me about 3-4 times, one day after the other. And I don't know if I whispered it, and it's like going through so much struggle. The wife can say 400 times to her husband, I talaq you and I divorce you and divorce you. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. So it's not a favor. They say, oh, but why can the man give divorce and the woman can't give divorce? The man's been favored. That's not the case. The woman can also have a divorce, but the process is a bit longer. It's not instant. I explained this to some non-Muslims once. And it's longer. I explained it in a lot of detail, and they understood at the end. This whole issue. So anyway, there's these kind of issues, and then we talk about marriage and dowry, mahar, the fiqh of marriage and dowry, and then what we just talked about, the first night of marriage. Alhamdulillah, no problem. But look, in the first night of marriage, greetings, supplications, salah, dua, prayers, light-hearted discussions. I've got this in my book as well. I've talked about this. Doesn't have to be sexual relations. Then maybe, you shouldn't hasten in consummating. If you could take a few days, not a problem. You've got a whole year of life. You don't have to. And then there's a discussion here about intimacy and sexual relations, and then rights and responsibilities of the spouses. And inshallah, we're ending what time? 1 o'clock today? Yeah. Okay, so we'll just end. So we can talk about this, and it's good. We can do Q&A. It's better. The next discussion is like rights and responsibilities. So tomorrow, inshallah, I'm going to blend all of this in. Rights and responsibilities, husband, wife, and then there's a whole discussion here. I've got what is it? Addressing marital problems. I have 10 reasons of divorce and marriage problems. I've got a list of 10 things that causes and contributes to divorces. And then I've got divorce and separation, some fiqh of divorce, etc. This is 78 pages. But those 10 reasons, so that and the rights and responsibilities, I'll just tie those kind of thing, and we can talk about that tomorrow, inshallah. So today was like more about the actual marriages. I think it's okay, worked out. Whatever's good, ما لا يدرك كله لا يترك كله. So inshallah, we can take some questions.
They have asked for a question.
Oh, they've asked first, okay.
While some Sahaba or Tabi'in were not married, is it okay to not get married for any noble cause?
Yeah, this is a discussion, and even in this course I talk about it in a lot of detail. There were some, not just Sahaba and Tabi'in. In terms of prophets, all the prophets were married, except two. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَذُرِّيَّةً. All the prophets were married except two. Which two? Isa alayhi salam and Yahya alayhi salam, peace be upon him. And Allah talks about Yahya alayhi salatu wa salam, وَسَيِّدًا وَحَصُورًا وَنَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And Isa alayhi salam, in the hadith we understand that he shall return and get married and have children. So the main is that it's a sunnah of the Anbiya. Now there's a whole discussion that if somebody wants to not marry, due to some other, like the sister asked, other noble reasons and causes, like for example they want to do khidmah of deen, for example. Remember, this is only a discussion when, because remember I said, this is how I didn't even talk about it, there's 5 ahkam of marriage: fard, wajib. So if it's not fard or wajib, majority of the people it's actually fard or wajib. 90% of the people is fard or wajib. So that discussion doesn't even apply. What is fard, wajib? It's all there. It's like it'll take a long time to discuss who is it fard for. I mean, I think majority of the people is fard. When you're 19, it's fard. You can't delay till 27. This is what I'm saying, that people are delaying marriage till they graduate, etc. And it's fard today. And if the parents are not letting them marry, then the parents are sin. There's a hadith that if your child gets married, if your child commits sin and you don't marry them often, the فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى أَبِيهِ. The parents are sinful. So if it's not the fard wajib situation, if it's what we say حالة الاعتدال, in the books of fiqh they say وفي حالة وعند التوقان واجب. I don't know if you read this text of fiqh. وعند التوقان واجب وفي حالة الاعتدال سنة مؤكدة مرغوبة. In normal, moderate situations, which is not fard wajib and also it's not haram, because sometimes it could be haram, then it's sunnatun muakkadatun marghubatun. It's an emphasized sunnah. Now this is differed upon between the different imams. Majority do say it's sunnah, at least sunnah, if not sunnah muakkada. But there is another opinion based on different evidences that if somebody was to want to dedicate themselves for other noble works and they stay away from marriage, then is it better? Takhallil al-ibadah, for example. So some imams are of the opinion that that's better. There are conflicting evidences. One of the evidences to support the other view is this verse about Yahya alayhi salam. وَسَيِّدًا وَحَصُورًا, is Allah is doing madah. He was sayyid and was hasur. He stayed away from marriage. وَنَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. So they take that as a dalil, some of the imams. So some imams were of this opinion. And that's why you got some of the great imams of this ummah who remained unmarried. Like Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiya anhu. Ibn Jarir Al-Tabari. Because remember, especially if you want to do these great types of works, you want to write books in 10 volumes and 20 volumes and 15 volumes, and at the same time be married and have children, it's very difficult. Either you have a very, very understanding spouse, that you travel to other side of the world, Australia, and there's no complaints, and you have understanding children, and a lot of the shuyukh, they're traveling constantly. How did they do it? It's difficult, unless you have an understanding family. Otherwise, it's not for everybody. Or you just remain unmarried. Because you're writing till 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and you can't. There's so much work involved in your khidmah of deen. Teaching, writing, traveling. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah wrote all of this, so many books, and he passed away at a young age. He was not married. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah as well, again rahimahullah, he also, wasn't married, had a lot of time, maybe too much time on his hands. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, he also remained unmarried. There was actually, a sister asked this question, there was actually a female great muhadditha called Karima Marwaziya al-Muhadditha al-Musnida. She lived until I think 99 or just 100 years of age, and in her time she was the greatest hadith scholar and had the greatest asanid, and طلاب العلم and ulama and shuyukh from the whole world would come and seek permission of hadith from her. The biographies of all of this has been gathered in a book written by Shaykh Abdul Fattah al-Ghudda rahimahullah called Al-Ulama Al-Uzzab. Don't say Uzzab. A student once said Al-Ulama Al-Uzzab. That's from Azab. These are ulama who are punished in hellfire. Uzzab means bachelor ulama. الذين آثروا العلم على الزواج, who gave preference to marriage over, gave preference to knowledge over marriage. He's got the biography of about 33 great imams of this ummah in this book. I don't think it's been translated in English. Yeah, not been translated. So basically there's a difference of opinion in this regard, but remember this is only for halatul i'tidal, and either one. If somebody wants to do that and follow that opinion and it's halatul i'tidal and they want to dedicate themselves, no problem, they can do so, inshallah, it's not a problem. Yes, brother.
Said that if a person has one month of what do you call it, money and whatnot,
Yeah.
they can get married. But you see, people with daughters, right? They have Australia has a certain standard of living. They have brought their daughters up in a certain way, and for them to give their daughters away to somebody who doesn't have money and who can't take care of them at that point.
Okay, they can't take care. Have we decided that, or we know they can't take care?
For example, somebody who has just 1 month of
Yeah, but is he working? If it's working, there's a difference. If someone's just got 1 month and he's got nothing else, he's just going to sit and means that he's not going to be able to give any nafaqah for the second month, then that's wrong. But if someone's got 1 month and then he's got a good job or a normal job or a stable that he will get money for the second month, then that's fine.
The minimum amount that's required, I don't know if others can, that we said was an average was around $3,500 to $4,000
For mahar or for?
for monthly expenses.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so somebody who doesn't earn that much is, I mean, how do we, and he is on the rightful age of getting married, right? There are a lot of mashallah students and ulama, new tulab who come out, and they're rightfully saying that they want to get married, but they can't afford a different house. They don't have that $4,000 of income.
Can they afford rent?
The rent, $4,000 and $4,000, it's very difficult, very difficult. So
Small house, like one room.
they have to like leave for upstairs.
Something modest, something simple. Sleep on the floor. Chatai ke upar.
Is it fair for them to have a girl here like who has already got a bed and in her house and whatnot? And that's
Well,
the question. I mean,
yeah.
they can get a girl from Pakistan. That's around $10,000 to get her.
The girls have been spoiled by their parents. That's the problem. It's a catch-22. It's a vicious circle, round circle. I understand where you're coming from. I totally understand. Look, there's no easy way like that because they have a certain standard. And this is why one of the things in marriage about compatibility is, when they say about nafaqah as well, this is a discussion. What is the average nafaqah? So they say how she was brought up, that type of nafaqah. There's a whole discussion of fiqh based on that. So it's very difficult. So you will have to find somebody who's not been. That's why the hadith says, وَأَرْضَى بِالْيَسِيرِ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْأَبْكَارِ. Get married to virgin girls. Why? فَإِنَّهُنَّ, the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَإِنَّهُنَّ أَعْذَبُ أَفْوَاهًا, because they are sweet-mouthed. They speak very gently. وَأَنْتَقُ أَرْحَامًا, they are more prolific in giving birth to children. وَأَرْضَى بِالْيَسِيرِ, and they are happy, content with less. They can't compare with, my husband used to give me this and you give me this, and he took me to 2 holidays a year and you're taking me to 1 holiday. وَأَرْضَى بِالْيَسِيرِ. So this tells us that someone who's not had too much before should be happy with it, whatever. I've got you. What else do I need? I've got you. What else do I need? I mean, I think that sometimes you become so amazing that the girl is ready to sacrifice everything, anything for you. I know I'm maybe talking about dreamland, but it's possible that some girls would be willing to sacrifice if you become such an amazing person in akhlaq, in character, in your ilm, in your knowledge, in your wisdom, and financially if you have less, then I'm sure certain. But remember, the girl has to also be Islamic tarbiyah, there, done. She's not materialistic. One of the things is that really important quality to look into for when you're looking for a spouse is that they are not materialistic, whether it's a man or a woman. If you get somebody who's materialistic, then you're going to have problems in marriage. Even later on, you have problems. Love of dunya, it's a problem. Yeah, go ahead. Just pray close.
The second question is marrying women who are reverts. They have what the stories we've heard of very close friends. They have a problem to an extent that once the marriage is done, it's happy 2-3 years. After that, there's a phase. They leave, and their old life comes back to them. I mean, what's the command? What's the best way of going forward with that?
Look, it's permissible, of course, to get married to somebody who embraced Islam. There's nothing wrong with that. But each individual situation will be different. It depends. I normally say that, look, when somebody embraces Islam just for marriage, then there's more chances of problems in that. Because they've just got married, like I said, the phase, 6 months. They just got married and just became Muslim, and 2 weeks they got married. But if somebody didn't get married, didn't become Muslim just for marriage, they themselves became Muslim and they were Muslim for a good year, 2 years, then there's very less chance that they're just going to go back. They're just like people who are born Muslims. Do you understand the difference? Somebody who's embraced Islam and then they studied, and after 2-3 years after they got married, they didn't become Muslim for nikah, for marriage. Because those who become Muslim for marriage, if the marriage goes bad, then the Islam goes bad. If the marriage goes bad, the Islam goes bad, because they're saying, okay, like I got married to him because I was thinking, they'll go back to their old life. So it depends. Each situation is different, but there's nothing wrong. I mean, if sometimes some people who are new Muslims and reverted, they are really, really good Muslims. Some of them are better Muslims than us. There's great shuyukh who become, like amazing shuyukh.
My question is around, you said about getting married if you have the nafaqah for 1 month.
I think all the questions about nafaqah 1 month.
I'm going to ask, let's suppose as a dad, I know, okay, I can look after the nafaqah for my son for 1 month or even a whole year, but I feel like at the age of 19, my son is not psychologically ready to take the burden or take the pressure. And as you mentioned that you have to be a diplomat, to keep it going happily. What should, as a dad, I should be incorporating in my upbringing of my child at the age of 18, 19, when he's physically mature enough to get married, so that he's psychologically mature enough as well to take the burden and take the pressure. Because as time goes on, financial burden, it brings on psychological burden. And what happens at times, things break. So just in terms of tarbiyah, what should I include in the tarbiyah that he's ready for that by that age?
Before that, I also think another thing to help that is, when we say nikah, marriage, there's one thing, getting married and having all the roles and responsibilities of marriage. And one is just getting married, but not having all those things. Like, for example, moving in together. Now you can be married, you can have a nikah, you can have, consummation of marriage, but they're not living together yet. That's also possible. So they see each other, they come and spend time, but he's not responsible fully yet. If there's an agreement like that between the both families, between the two, that's also an option. That helps the chastity side, but then also the burden is not there. There's nothing wrong with that, I personally think. Some people think that's a taboo, like why? No, either you get married and take everything and that's it. you have to be responsible today. Or if you're not, then you can't just do anything about marriage. Right? I don't think it's necessary. So, and then in terms of tarbiyah, your specific question is, just try to make them mature more and more. It's just, you have to do tarbiyah. We'll talk about it maybe in the evening. Let's leave that. Yeah. Inshallah.
Another one I've got, I don't know if you find it appropriate or not, if you can give a bit of light on nikah and misyar, if you find it appropriate to tell us what is it and how can
No, misyar, it's a new word term. Classically, there's no such a thing as misyar. It's from the word yusr, some say, which means it's easy marriage. Easy marriage meaning like it's a marriage easy for the man, and maybe for a woman to an extent as well, where they get married, but they forgive each other their rights. It's convenience, it's easy. So the wife says, okay, you don't have to give me nafaqah, you don't have to provide for me, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And the husband says as well, you don't have to, maybe move into my house. Things like that. You can stay wherever you are. So that's what it is. Islamically, if two people agree on that, of forgiving one right, or two rights, or three rights, or all rights, technically it's permissible. Not a problem. It's permissible, technically. So this is what it is, yeah. Those marriages are haram. I've got it in this discussion as well. I've got a whole article in misyar actually, on the Darul Hikmah website, a fatwa I wrote back in the day 10 years ago. It's online. Just put it in Google and put my name, you'll come across. Nikah misyar. Good 7-8 pages I've written on it. What's not allowed is whether misyar or no misyar. Temporary marriage. I am coming to Australia for 1 week and I just get married for 1 week in Australia, with the intention that as long as I am in Sydney, or I travel to Brisbane, or I go to Perth, 1 week marriage, and then talaq after that. That's haram. Nikah al-muwaqqat, or it's called mut'ah. The Shias do that. They do it one night. That's not even nikah. That's just mut'ah arrangement. But we have, that's why in the books of fiqh they say, وَنِكَاحُ الْمُتْعَةِ وَالْمُوَقَّةِ بَاطِلٌ. It's invalid. So, yeah, that's what it is. So if it's time limited, if it's temporary, then it's haram, it's invalid, etc. If it isn't, then it's permissible.
Wife said something from her words that maybe like will come out of Islam, but some of the words, but we're not sure, like we keep on going with our marriages. So is it better to do the tasdeed and nikah sometimes in our lifetime? Although we don't know, like sometimes he utters such words or myself utter some words, which is like take me out of Islam, and then anyway we said kalima, then we back, but what about our nikah? So like this sometimes comes like a person do zina even though it's his wife. So is it better to keep on doing tasdeed and nikah sometimes in your lifetime?
No, there's two things relating to this. One is, do you understand his question? No. There's two aspects to this. One, you need to get the balance right. On one hand, don't become obsessed and OCD, because that's an illness. Thinking maybe I said something, or maybe she said, maybe I kalimat. The amount of emails I have about people thinking they've committed kufr. Seriously, it's crazy. Oh, I think I did kufr, or maybe do you think I've come out of Islam, or have I committed kufr? The OCD. I just met somebody here the other day, not here, in Sydney. I have a whole video I did on this waswasa, misgivings, OCD 2-3 years ago, because so many people are involved in this. So that you need to try to take out, don't start doubting, maybe I said something, maybe it could have been kufr, maybe my marriage has ended, maybe I've given talaq. Just shaitan plays with you, because if you keep on thinking like that, then it'll become more and more and more, and become intense, and then it could become very, very problematic in life. You have to fight against these misgivings and waswas. I don't entertain them. So that's the one part. As far as the second part, tajdeed or nikah, that's good in itself. Regardless of this, that's good. Brings barakah, blessings, it's good. Even married people, every once in a while, meaning like every 5 years or something. No problem. Well, just it's romantic. Just, it's like, okay, let's just have a new nikah, and, we'll go, just tajdeed. It's just barakah, just no problem. You can do it at home, just do a nikah and then just, it's like, have a new honeymoon. Just as you do a normal nikah. You will have to give her mahar again. Just make a small, amount of mahar, and she can forgive you for that mahar. 2 witnesses. It's like any first nikah as well. Just ijab and qabul. You recite the khutbah, and you say, I give myself to you in marriage. I accept you in marriage. Make like a whole kind of a occasion out of it. Those who are not in marriage, non-Muslims, for example, who are together, they date each other, even though they live together, whatever. They'll say this is a date time or something like that. I read. Yes. So this is a bit like, this is our, once a year we do a nikah again, and then we go spend some time, and the children, give them to the grandparents, and you keep them. We need 1 week away. Grandparents keep the children. This is our private time, one week, if it's possible. This is also nurturing the nikah, nurturing the marriage, and it's good. So tajdeed nikah always brings barakah. So there's nothing wrong with that. Some of the ulama have written on this, that it's good, it's blessings. There's nothing wrong. If you're already married and you're doing tajdeed of nikah, there's nothing wrong with that. But the first point, don't have waswasa.
I heard saying about Umar Shepherd saying that if someone says Ja'at is actually a talaq as well. So if someone just said that not trying their anything, not having intention, and just gets lost, what would that be treated?
These talaq issues like these wordings, etc., don't worry about it too much. Especially the kinaya ones. The non-talaq words, it depends a lot on context, place, locality, community, India, Pakistan, Australia, a massive difference. And we shouldn't worry about it too much. First of all, just make these things don't happen. If it happens, then ask the fuqaha of the time, of the place. So this as well, it's not just going to be talaq just like that. There was this one word that they used to say, farig, in Urdu. I have an article on this as well on the website. It's so confusing. I was confused myself. It's about 5 pages long. And there's 4 opinions, different opinions. And Mawlana Shaytanawi said, and somebody else said, and what the Hanafi fiqh said, and Raddul Muhtar said this, and it's very complicated. Once I've thought about this, I've thought about this on more than one occasion. I have a website, for those of you who don't know, which is called darulifta.com. In there's all this fiqh question answers, and there's a whole section of talaq. In there's a lot of detailed talaq articles explaining kinaya and ba'in. There's been so many times I've thought about just deleting all those questions. Because people who didn't know anything about this, had no doubts, after reading this, they're thinking, maybe I've said this, or Chalija, this. I'm telling people, don't read this stuff. You don't need to read this fiqh of divorce. You don't need to read. It's confusing you. Actually, I did remove 2 because it was very complicated and it was giving people waswasa and doubts. But I was thinking about removing a lot of them. Just basic fiqh of divorce is fine, but all of this, because there's, are you online here? No. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Just put the, yeah, so basically that's the answer, yeah, inshallah.
Just want to know, what is the Islamic ruling of like a khutbah before nikah? Because we often hear like nikah is just a mu'amala. In Sharia, many of the Sahaba they didn't come to the Prophet ﷺ to get the nikah done. So what's the ruling of that?
It's a sunnah. It's called khutbatul haja. This khutbah is called what? Khutbatul haja. In which, this was the, really, this is a good question actually. This khutbah is not a special, specific khutbah of nikah. Do you know that? This was a khutbah that the Messenger ﷺ would recite before anything important. You're buying a Tesla car, خطبة الحاجة. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى 3 آيات of taqwa. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا. And the third one? Yeah, that's usually. And then the other taqwa verse? يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. That's it. Then the hadith etc. is extra they read. Just that khutbah and just reading these 3 verses is called khutbatul haja. It was the practice habit of the Messenger ﷺ to recite this before anything important, before even giving advice, before even giving nasiha. And this is why this is a good way. Like sometimes if I have a habit of doing this, that if I've got sometimes 2 people, like there's a couple, they've got marriage issues, they've come to see me, and before, or even if it's just one person and is asking for advice, so before that I'll just quickly read that. Before saying, okay brother, I'm giving you advice, just read it. It doesn't have to be audibly. 3 verses of taqwa. There's barakah. So before writing a book, before advising, before a decision, before making a legal verdict, before being a guide to any mu'amala, anything of importance, before a business deal, before a rental agreement, and before marriage as well. And this is the nature of the khutbah. Therefore, a marriage without this is completely done, valid. Marriage takes place. I've actually got the whole, in this course I've got the khutbah, I've 3 verses, I've translated them, I've explained this whole. But you know how long it takes to get married? I give myself to you in marriage. I accept you in marriage. 5 seconds. And do you know how long it takes to end a marriage? Talaq, talaq, talaq. Or even just talaq. Even less, 1 second. It's very simple. You get married in a few seconds and you end marriages in a few seconds. Everything else is not a condition. Mahar is not a condition for the validity of marriage. Mahar is necessary, but marriage is valid even if you don't give or fix or agree on mahar. Yeah, there's another thing which is integral, which is witnesses. You have to have witnesses. But that's different to divorce. Divorce, even without witnesses, is done. That's the difference. In marriage, you have to have ijab, qabul, and witnesses. In divorce, there's no ijab, qabul. The wife doesn't have to qabul it. It's just one way. The bullets. You don't have to accept the bullets. It's just done from one way, and there's no witnesses necessary. So yeah, nikah you can even do it at home. If you want to do tajdeed of nikah, you can just do it yourself. Just have 2 witnesses at home. Get your brother and get your sister, or get the parents and just sit down, and that's it. And then just recite, if you want the barakah, just recite the khutbah. Anyone can recite. The 2 people getting married, one of them can recite, or the 2 witnesses can recite. This whole thing about having an imam and etc. It's not necessary. I don't want to take all the imams out of job. It's so simple. You see, Islam is not Christianity. You don't have to get yourself blessings and baptized and all of that. And you don't need. If people knew exactly a lot of these rulings, you don't really need an imam and pay the money for them. It's simple.
Can one children be witnesses as well?
Yeah, they can be. Yeah. If you've got children, your own baligh children, it's like, for example, someone's divorced, etc. They've already got children and then they get married. Right? There's a case, somebody asked me this question, that the 2 witnesses one was the son of the man who was getting married, and the other was the son of the woman. They were both divorced. And they both had a son or more children. And those 2, they were being witnesses for their parents. Yeah, this is good question. Carry on. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is a good question. I was going to say this. Actually, we were discussing this with some ulama and mashayukh, and I think some of my teachers as well, that he said, look and search into the seerah and sunnah. And the conclusion was that we don't find hardly examples in hadith where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is conducting nikahs. You don't find that. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we discussed this with Mufti Al-Kawthari hafidhahullah, and he was saying as well that, yeah, we don't find this. Don't quote this from him, because I'm not 100%, but from what I'm remembering, we were in a journey or a travel somewhere, and we were discussing all of this, and he said, yeah, that we don't find this in the sunnah or the seerah. This Sahaba used to come and say, okay, mera nikah parao. We think that they were speaking in Urdu, by the way. This happens a lot, you know. Sometimes people are giving a lecture and then they quote that the Sahabi said to the Prophet. They're talking in English and they'll say the Sahabi said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they'll say in Urdu. This happens. Have you noticed this? This happens a lot. They never used to speak Urdu. They speak English. Anyway, so yeah, it's there that we don't find examples of that.
Son or daughter, they got the age of the marriage, and they want their own to marry, which is a good thing for this day and age. But the parents are delaying, whether it's culture, they don't find the, and because they are the children, they are obedient. They can say, okay, I want to marry, I want to marry. So this delay happens is a cultural, it means a lot of cultural issues. So what those boys and girls can do, because it will be 24, it will be 30. Because, so this is the first question. The other one will come.
See, obedience to parents. Parents have many rights, two very important rights. There's many other rights, we can't talk about those, but there's two rights of parents. One is obedience, ita'ah. And the other is good treatment, being nice and kind and considerate and courteous and gentle towards them. Out of these two, the second one is a mutlaq right. Mutlaq means unrestricted, no ifs and buts, no conditions, every scenario, every situation, unrestricted mutlaq right. Which one? Second one. Even if they are non-Muslims, even if they force you to leave Islam, even if they tell you to commit shirk, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِمَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, which tells us the first one, that if they compel you to commit shirk, don't obey them, because the first right is not mutlaq. The first one is conditional. The obedience depends. Sometimes obedience is fard, sometimes obedience is wajib, sometimes obedience is mubah, just permissible, sometimes it's mandub, sometimes it's good to obey. And this you have to understand. If, for example, this comes a lot, the parents say, divorce your wife. Do you have to? I've got an article online as well about this, that do you have to listen to your father's command or your mother's command to divorce your wife? It's not, there's no one straight answer. Obedience is, it's not mutlaq. It depends on the situation. Sometimes it's haram to listen to your parents. When? If they compel you to commit sins. Now, the example you've given, can we think that this is the haram situation? Because if they say you can't marry and you are going to end up doing zina, I'm not saying it is, but you can take it to that scenario that, look, I'm going to commit zina basically, so I don't have to obey them. And there's no sin in disobeying. Yes, their right of good treatment, that's why the Quran says, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Treating them well, that is a unlimited right. And that there's no compromise for that. So if the parents are basically not allowing, then yes, look, they should use hikmah. They should use wisdom, they should use hikmah, get someone involved. Not just this is what you say, وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Get a local imam involved, someone understanding, get the shuyukh involved, get people, someone who listens, who they listen to, respect, go and please explain to my father, explain to my mother. Try all different ways, not just say, okay, you don't know, understand Islam, and I'm, no. You have to give them right, and you have to, treat them well, and try all possible ways and means. And then if it still doesn't work, then you have a right to marry without their permission.
It's mostly inside the marriage. So with the family, because as a male we got rights, the wife got rights upon us. Okay, we also got rights. Parents also got rights. Still, although I'm married, the parents also got rights. So these are some of the fine-tune balances there. How do we, as a man, as a father or as a son, we make these balances? Because that balance also affects all the family relationships a lot. Because of women usually come, they left their house, they come, but we do that. So
This is the oldest problem of planet Earth, where you are on the as-sirat. You're on that bridge, so delicate, sharper than a knife. Very, this is the bridge, as-sirat. One side is your mother, one side is your wife. One side your parents, one side your wife. Just ask both of them to have mercy on this man. Best, I always say, the most fortunate man is where his mother and his wife are the best friends. You just move out, let them be the best friends. It's difficult. Look, there's no one simple answer. The answer is that, how do you balance? You can only balance if those two are balanced. You can only be balanced if those two are, parents and your wife are balanced. They need to be balanced. If they are not balanced, if they are imbalanced, and whatever you do, it's not going to work. You can do the best, but if they are not balanced, if they don't have those basic qualities and traits of balance, then you will always have problems. Just leave it in the hands of Allah and just do sabr, and inshallah get Jannah through sabr. So one of the ways of getting into Jannah, no problem. Life is not, it can't be all easy. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. There's trials, difficulties, hardships. It's all right. Sometimes your mother will, your parents will probably get angry at you. It's okay, no problem. Another palace in Jannah, inshallah. Your wife will, one day will be upset with you. Alhamdulillah, another palace in Jannah. It's okay, no problem. It's fine.